those of you that haven't met me yet, my name is Bryce Carter, and I'm actually the youngest of the 10 candidates. I'm a student at Virginia Tech, and I'll be graduating next spring. But I've fallen in love with the Blacksburg community, and I consider myself a permanent resident. And I know some people have asked about it, but if I'm elected, it's a 4-year commitment, and I'm excited to be able to serve that term if I am elected. So, you may not be expecting it, but I want to dive into a little bit of history before I get into some of the stuff with our campaign. Blacksburg was founded in 1798, and it was actually, one of the ideas was, it was designed in a diamond shape pointing north, which was actually to allow passive solar to work. Because then you have the sun that could drive the streets, the many streets in the summer, and also melt the winter snow in the winter. And that's one of the first examples of, I would think, sustainability as far as Blacksburg is concerned. And so, fast forward to maybe like the mid-1800s or so, you had the coal companies moving into the area along with what is now known as the Huckberry Line. And they came in to get the coal, and they actually took down a lot of trees to build the rail line and to build the infrastructure for that. And so when the trees were gone, what happened was a bunch of low-lying blueberry bushes grew really well. And so before the times of radio and all that sort of stuff, all the community came out in little buggies and picked all the huckberries, as they became known as, and cooked up cobblers and all sorts of stuff, and they were really well known. And so by, I think, 1904, the huckberry was extended to Blacksburg, and that's where the rail line was established. And so just kind of looking at some of the development of Blacksburg and how we got to be where we are today, one date that stands out in my mind is 1901, July 3rd, is when the first horseless buggy came to town. People lined the streets to check it out, and it was just such an astonishing thing. And it's noteworthy also to know that the horseless buggy came to town before the train came to town. So after World War II, suburbia, the idea of suburbia began to expand. We started to see new developments. Airport Anchors, I believe, was one of the first ones developed, and then Tom's Creek, one of the communities that was there was actually specifically for students that had families, grad students, and that led to more development with the Gables Shopping Center in the 60s, and just kind of really started to explode in the 70s and 80s, where you start to see these mega complexes expand. And since about 1900, there's been about at least the same amount of students as have been town residents. So it just shows the reliance that we've had with the Virginia Tech community and the Blacksburg community, and how everyone's integrated with that. So then one of the next dates that's kind of significant is the opening of the Christiansburg Mall in 1988. That also was another important date. I was born. So at least I think it's important. So now I just wanted to kind of go into my history and my background and why I'm running for town council, building up to there. So I'm actually a Fairfax County native. I grew up there, was born there, and I was my house was just 2 blocks away from the Fairfax County Parkway. And I remember just before it was actually built, I remember them taking down the trees. I was in the car seat still, and I told my mom, "Don't worry, Mommy, those trees will be replanted. They'll grow back." And they never did. And still to this day, every time to ask any Northern Virginia student, they go back up there. Every time you go back up there, you just see subdivisions just developed, and forest and open space just taken out by tremendous amounts, and it's shocking every time. And so, kind of my first experience is being involved with the community and starting to be interested in environmental issues was my senior year in high school. I took a class because I was interested in environmental stuff, and I actually spent several summers doing construction internships with a company called Hensel Phelps. And one of the projects they worked on was the Pentagon renovation. They also worked on T.C. Williams High School, which is actually a LEED certified project. So I decided, okay, I'm interested in environmental stuff. I want to learn more about the issues, and I took advanced placement environmental science. And so when I took that class, I found out you had to do mandatory community service as part of the class. And I think it was 16 hours for the entire year. And my first thought was, I didn't want to do that. Why do I want to do mandatory community service? And then I got out, and I decided, okay, I'll just try just a couple hours community service to see how I like it and to see what it's like. And I ended up on, if you know the area, Bull Run, and down the river, and it just put us on this bank, and it was astonishing. And I didn't realize that it was one of those life-altering moments, because you see the trash, you see what people throw out, you see the runoff, and the oils, and you just can't help but think of the wildlife that's affected by all this stuff. And that's when I began to understand that, the world that we live in, we're affecting it in ways that a lot of us don't even understand or see. And so instead of doing 16 hours, I ended up doing 100 hours of community service. I ended up working with a nonprofit group, if you've heard of it, called Earth Sangha, and we planted lots of tree plantings and worked with a lot of groups and removing invasive species up there. And it really started to expand my foundation of being interested in the environment. So I applied to Virginia Tech, actually undecided. At that point I was still thinking, okay, maybe I'll do green architecture or something, or green engineering. I still was on the line between those two things. And so I got to Virginia Tech. At orientation, they actually talked about a new class called Earth Sustainability. And it really impacted me, because it was like, why not learn more about these issues on a college level? And so I took that class, and it was a 2-year core curriculum series, and it was just comprehensive with everything. And over that time, I started to also get involved with the Environmental Coalition at Virginia Tech. The Environmental Coalition has been involved with a lot of different aspects, and our most recent success was the passing of the Virginia Tech Climate Action Commitment Sustainability Plan. And there was a lot of effort that went into that. A lot of people got involved with it. And it was just a tremendous effort on the part of everybody that was in the EC and with the administration of Virginia Tech. And so, as a lot of people were working with that, I was recruiting a lot of people, because I realized one of the aspects of what this movement is towards a sustainable future is to get people involved, get people excited. There's several events called there's Powership Conferences, was the name of it, and we ended up hosting a statewide conference here at Virginia Tech last fall called Virginia Powership. We had 400, 500 students come, and myself and 2 other friends that were kind of central planners, we each received a community service award for our efforts involved. I've been to places such as Portland, Oregon, and seen the development out there. It just, started seeing the impacts that we can have in, bringing this movement into policy and making things happen on the level of governance. And one of the events that I was part of was called Focus the Nation. 2 years ago, in the January of 2008, on January 31st, there was a national teach-in at schools across the nation to educate about the issues of global warming. And so we did what we could to get the campus involved, and we had a tremendously successful event that a lot of teachers volunteered to teach about global warming in each of their subjects. We also had an amazing roundtable discussion between members of the coal industry with Dominion Power. We had environmentalists, we had scientists, we had representatives from the town, and just having that roundtable discussion with all these different players really was important to me, and it really made an impression on, I think, everyone that night, because it took some effort, and actually 2 of the people that came were in a lawsuit against each other. So it really was just amazing to see that. And I've learned that having that dialogue and having those conversations with people, even though you may be on opposite sides, is so important in this movement as we work with enhancing our communities and pursuing sustainability. So that kind of leads up to this year, which was another Focus the Nation event. We had the mayor come out and a council member, and they spoke to us. And I've been thinking about potentially running for the local office, and at this point, I've really fallen in love with the Blacksburg community, because there's so much potential here, because we're right on the cusp of going a variety of different ways. And being from Fairfax County, and going to other places like Portland, Oregon, and other developments, you can kind of almost get a sense of the best and worst of certain strategies. And so when you bring that back to Blacksburg and you see the potential we have, it's just so tremendous and astounding that you almost don't know what to do with it. And so when the Focus Nation this year happened, the idea came up, it's like, students should run, students should have representation. And it just kind of hit home with me, and that night, I decided, why not? Why not run for town council? Why not, try to make the experiences I have and the resources I have, why not try to bring it to the town and try to make a difference in Blacksburg?